Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? It's proclaimed the greatest radio show.
It is basically the midway point of the regular season, because what is it, 13 weeks usually? So there's no real midway point.
14 for some.
I usually play 13. I'm not well versed in the 14-week regular season.
Halfway point already in fantasy.
Yeah, that's it. That's why last week when I said I was 5-0, my team had a good shot at the playoffs. Realistically, I just got to win 3 games, and then I lost both my games. So go me.
We're going to start off with waiver claims, though. Only one quarterback this week, and if your quarterback's on a bye, you don't have a backup quarterback, take a look at Brian Hoyer from Houston maybe. He's still available in about 90% of the leagues. And look, over his last 3 games, which were versus Atlanta, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville, he had 837 yards and 7 touchdowns compared to just 1 interception. Now, it gets a little tougher for him moving forward. Over the next 5 weeks, he has Miami, Tennessee, who is one of the better defenses against the pass this season. Then they have a bye, and they come out of the bye versus Cincinnati and the New York Jets. So it's going to be tough for him moving forward. But the best matchup out of those 4 games there is probably Miami. So if you need a quarterback for this week because your quarterback's on a bye or something, like I said, Brian Hoyer isn't a bad option. Look, he has one of the best receivers in the game in DeAndre Hopkins, obviously. This guy has been a beast this season. And since Hoyer stepped in for Mallett, you remember Mallett got benched, Hoyer's been pretty good, and the addition of Foster has helped him too. So Hoyer has looked good over the past 3 weeks.
I read the other day that Bill O'Brien's going to stick with Hoyer for the rest of the year, barring injury or, I guess, a complete meltdown. But they're low on Mallett now. His attitude's been pretty crappy around the team.
Yeah, I want to see how he plays through these 4 games here that are pretty tough matchups for him. After that, it gets a little bit easier. So if he plays well in 3 or 4 of these games or something, I'd go and pick him up for sure and trust him down the stretch.
Bubby.
How about running backs here? The top ad this week is James Starks from Green Bay. He's available in about 75% of the league still.
What's wrong with Eddie Lacy? He's beat, just like I said. Block you, Lacy.
Well, listen, he had an ankle injury to start the season, and that still may be hurting him at this point, but he only had a couple carries in this game, while James Starks had 10 carries for 112 yards, a 65-yard touchdown run. He added a 5-yard touchdown through the air as well. They're going to move forward with some sort of time sharing, just because, I mean, you can't just sit Starks on the bench after this. And if he looks like the better running back than Lacy from week to week, he's going to get more of the playing time. And really, Starks has looked better than Lacy so far this season. I wouldn't go out and drop Lacy, but if you have Lacy, I might go add Starks. I might make him my waiver claim this week, because if something happens where Lacy can't turn it around, or maybe this injury lasts throughout the season, James Starks would be the go-to guy here. So if you have Lacy, I go pick up Starks as well, although he is on a bye this week, so he's not going to help you this week if you do need a running back. Of course, if you have Lacy, you obviously need a running back to fill in for him. If you don't have one on your bench, you're going to have to look somewhere else. And maybe this Christian Michael guy from Dallas can do the job for you. He's still available.
Never heard of him.
He got traded to Dallas from Seattle. He was the backup to Lynch last year.
Yeah, he's available in about 60% of the league still. The Dallas Cowboys are coming off a bye. They're unhappy with Joseph Randle right now. They think he's been a letdown. Lance Dunbar is done for the season. He was the back that was used in the passing game. McFadden has taken over that role.
Dunbar's
out.
Dunbar.
Your boy.
Yeah,
Is that your boy?
Yeah, he was killing it, and then
He's
he went
done.
down. Yeah, he's
Dunbar.
done for the
Knew
season.
it. Dunbar, you're garbage.
But listen, yeah, McFadden took his role. This is another guy that may be out there. I think he's available in about 70% of the leagues or something like that. He's taken over Dunbar's role, and Dunbar looked good. Now, McFadden, he's not as good as Dunbar, but he's a guy you can go out and add probably if you do need a back. But Michael, he's fully expected to begin playing a major role in this offense. He might not be the starter going forward, but he's going to take a lot of time away from Joseph Randle. And if he looks good right off the bat, I could see him becoming the starter moving forward. But I'm not too high on this guy just because we've seen all these backs. None of them really succeeded outside of Dunbar just because of the passing game. So I'm not sure if it's just because none of these running backs are good, or it's because they don't have Tony Romo out there and teams can stack the box against them, obviously. And maybe this line just isn't playing as well now that they don't have DeMarco Murray behind them. But they do go up against the New York Giants this week, and they've allowed the 10th most fantasy points to running backs this season. So Michael might be a good play this week. And if I'm playing any back in Dallas, it's probably going to be Michael, although McFadden would be my second choice. All right, let's move on to receivers here. The top receiver this week is Stephon Diggs from Minnesota. He's still available in about 90% of the leagues. And look, he only played in 2 games this season. He was only active for 2 games, but he had 19 targets, 13 receptions, and 216 yards in those 2 games. Last week versus Kansas City, he had 9 targets, 7 catches for 129 yards. Now, KC's pass defense hasn't been that good this year, but it's looking like he could be the number 2 starter opposite of Mike Wallace moving forward. And really, he's being targeted more than Mike Wallace at this point. And it's not really a surprise. We know Mike Wallace has always been pretty much a one-trick pony. So it looks like Stephon Diggs could be Teddy Bridgewater's go-to guy. And they go up against Detroit this week. They let up the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. So go claim him, and I would play him as well if you need a receiver.
PPR claim waivers.
How about another receiver here? Rashard Matthews from Miami. He's still available in about 50% of the leagues. The new regime here in Miami made this offense look a lot better this past week, even if it was just for 1 week. At Tennessee, though, and Tennessee is a team that can stop the pass, not very good against the run. Speaking of which, Lamar Miller, he looked very good in this game. Jarvis Landry, he looked good in this game. Jordan Cameron came up with a touchdown in this game. Tannehill looked better in this game. Matthews has remained the number 2 wide receiver out there despite all these changes made, and it doesn't look like Devontae Parker is really going to be a factor anytime soon. In fact, they have Stills and Jennings above him, it looks like, at this point. But last week at Tennessee, he had 6 catches for 85 yards, so there's 14 points in PPR, and he's had double-digit fantasy points in 4 or 5 weeks this season. I like Rashard Matthews out there, especially if they get this offense going and Tannehill can start playing a little better.
The offense is
dropped
definitely
that
going to
dude.
get going. You dropped him?
Yep.
That's
like
why
2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
That's why you're
dropped
5
him,
and 0. Hey, well, I honestly, I've been hating on Miami since the start of the year. I honestly think they probably will turn it around and open it up fantasy point wise with their players and their people.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to keep winning games. Historically, when you
We're
fire
talking
your
about
coach,
winning.
yeah, historically when you fire your coach, you win 1 or 2, guys are amped up, and then they go in a dirt mound. But the offense is still going to put up points. It's the defense that's costing them games this year.
All right, one other receiver here real quick. If you have Allen Robinson, it looks like he's going to play, but if for some reason it happens where he sits out by game time this week, go out and hurry up and pick Brian Walters up from Jacksonville. He'll probably be out there. He's available in about 100% of the leagues. Look, he had 12 targets last week, 8 catches, 87 yards, and most of that came with Robinson out of the game when he got hurt. So if Robinson sits, the only way I play Walters is if Robinson sits, but if that does happen, I go out and pick him up real quick.
And no one's thinking about doing that.
Please believe. Well, if you're in a deep 12 to 14 team league or something.
Yeah, but there's probably those guys in the deep 12 and 14 team leagues that don't even pay attention, you would think.
Oh yeah, I'm
start
sure
listening.
there are
Maybe
some
they
leagues.
can win. Follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread.
All right, a couple tight ends here. There's actually 3 of them. The first one, like I said, Miami, they're looking better. Jordan Cameron scored last week. He had 3 catches for 30 yards, but he did have 8 targets as well. He's only available in about 30% of the leagues right now, though, so there's a good chance he may not be available in your league, but it's still possible. But look, he's had at least 7 targets in 4 of 5 games this season, although he's only caught 15 balls. Him and Tannehill just haven't been on the same page at all, and maybe going forward they will start to work it out here with that new regime I was talking about, because Jordan Cameron, he has top 10 potential in terms of tight ends, and he's showed it in spurts here this season. They just got to get on the same page with Jarvis Landry, Matthews, and Cameron. I think that's a good 1, 2, 3 for Tannehill out there.
Now, I got Delaney Walker and Jordan Cameron. Who do I start and win? You know what I mean? That's what's tough.
Well, it depends. You got to look at the matchups, man. Actually, Delaney Walker looked good this past week, so I might stick with him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that doesn't mean don't go pick Jordan Cameron up, because I don't 100% trust Delaney Walker either, especially with Mariota out. Now that I think about it, Mariota being out, you might want to go towards Jordan Cameron at this point. Or another guy you could go to, Ben Watson. How about this? He's available in about 90% of the leagues. He had a career game last week. 10 catches on 12 targets, 127 yards and a touchdown. I'm not going to rely on this guy. I don't think he's an every week producer in fantasy. But Drew Brees, I mean, you've seen what he did with Jimmy Graham. Not saying Ben Watson's anything close to that, but Drew Brees likes to use his tight end, obviously, and really Cooks has been somewhat of a letdown. Coleman, remember, we were high on him. He's been a letdown so far. Colston's old and beat. Willie Snead's really the one guy that has stepped up in this passing game. Maybe Ben Watson can be that other guy and not put up numbers like he did this past week, but still give you decent fantasy numbers if you need a backup on your team, or maybe even a low-end tight end number one by season's end.
The Saints are going to be behind a lot this year. They're going to throw it a lot. They're looking for somebody to replace Jimmy Graham. I'm not saying Ben Watson is anywhere near talented, but they like to throw to the tight end, so he's probably going to get the targets. We'll see if he can keep up the production over the rest of the season. But he had a lot of pedigree coming out of college. I was surprised this guy hasn't had a better career. So maybe he's one of those dudes that has a late renaissance in his career, has 2-3 good years, and then rolls out into the sunset to Arizona.
One last tight end here. Someone that a lot of people may have forgot about.
Heath Miller.
No, Austin Seferian-Jenkins.
Jeez.
Heath Miller had one catch last week. Why would you want to go pick him up? But look, yeah, awesome. ASJ, he's available in about 80% of the leagues. And you remember what he did in week 1. 5 catches, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns versus Tennessee. And then he got hurt in the second game of the season after 2 catches for 29 yards. There is a possibility that he could return this week. And even if he doesn't, he should be back by week 8 at Atlanta. And there's, again, another possibility. This guy could be a top 10 tight end with Jameis Winston out there for his check down target.
I think I'm going to hack our Yahoo Fantasy League and turn Des Bryant into a tight end so I can play him at tight end. Hack the system.
Colston was listed at tight end his rookie season, and I killed it with him.
It's not even fair and hilarious at the same time.
All right, that's it, though. Let's move on to some situational starters here. Who are you going to go with?
I'm going to go with Michael Floyd from Arizona. They're going up against Baltimore. Their pass defense has been beat. Anybody who's watched the NFL this year, I don't even need to give you any of Floyd's stats. I don't need to give you Baltimore's stats. You just know the Ravens get torched. And Carson Palmer put up 400 and something yards against the Steelers. They're getting mad yards out there. Larry Fitz has cooled off the last week or two a little bit from his 30-something point beast performances he had. John Brown had a beast performance last week. So the Cardinals are going to keep chucking it. Floyd will get more targets as the year goes on, especially in this game.
Yeah, if you remember, he started the season hurt, and it's taken him a while to get back into this offense because Larry Fitz and John Brown stepped up the way they did. But last week, 5 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown versus Pittsburgh. Like I said, he's definitely the number 3 out there behind Fitz and Brown.
Isn't it more like 1A, 1B, and 1C in that offense, though, the way they throw the football?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you never know who's going to come up with the biggest game in any given week. But Michael Floyd, he's a guy I really liked coming into the season. Too bad he had those dislocated fingers. Now that he's healthy, he has upside. He's had 18 targets over the last 3 games. And like you said, Carson Palmer throwing the ball all over the field. I like Michael Floyd as a situational starter this week, and I'm hoping he can actually get into every week starter here soon. Anybody you want to mention easy?
To be honest, you've set it up. You put me on a platter for this one. You were just talking about Miami. Well, the only way the Miami offense
is going to get it done
is with Ryan Tannehill. And now here's what probably a lot of people are having the same problem as I am this year. I mean, I got 2 teams, different leagues. I got Luck in one, Roethlisberger in the other. Okay, so instantly we're 5 weeks deep, and I have quarterback issues to begin with. So, and Roethlisberger's still out. Luck, he come back. He finally put up some points, and he's going to be there if he's healthy.
And your backup's good in that league too, Bortles.
Right. Well, I was fortunate because I'm only in a 10-team league. No one picked up Bortles, so right. I just got him off of waivers, and he's been performing. I'll tell you what, Ryan Tannehill, and especially this week too, I honestly think Houston's defense is garbage.
They have been this year.
And they have been this year.
J.J. Watt's, I don't think he's hurt.
He's
I think
concussed
he was sick.
or sick. He's got the flu.
He's sick of how bad they're playing. Sick of Jadeveon Clowney not playing.
Well, look, Tannehill hasn't been too bad in fantasy. He hasn't been as good as people hoped, but he's still been all right. He has 2 TDs in each of his last 4 games, although he does have 7 picks in his last 3 games as well. But you look, last week at Tennessee, Tennessee is a very good team against the pass. Like I said before, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. I think they're going to build off this big win against Tennessee last week, and Ryan Tannehill is going to come out and have one of his best games this season.
He's capable of getting it done, but it's sad at this point in his career that, like, right now, Blake Bortles is almost at his level.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
Blake Bortles comes up with some bad mistakes too, though. I mean, I know Tannehill 7 INTs over his last 3 games, but he's taken care of the ball a little better than that over the past year and 6-7 games or whatever. So, I mean, I still trust Tannehill to take care of the ball a little bit better than Bortles, but in terms of fantasy, I'm going Bortles all day.
Please believe. Dropping Manning and playing Bortles.
Yeah, and if you have Manning, you're in trouble too. Pick somebody up.
I'm going to go with Eric Decker from the New York Jets. He goes into New England this week, who's allowed the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. Look, he scored a TD in all 4 games played, so he's been consistent for New York out there. I mean, they look good with Fitzpatrick running at quarterback. Brandon Marshall has been a very consistent number 1 receiver out there.
He just likes to throw it onto the turf after he catches it.
Yeah, he acts like an idiot, but Eric Decker has been a very consistent number 2 receiver out there, and he has 23 targets over his last 3 games. So he's getting the ball thrown to him, and they could be passing a ton in this game if they're unable to keep up with New England.
New England's going to throttle them, so they're going to have to pass.
Eric
I don't
Decker's
know. The New York
25.
Jets look pretty good, man. The New England's going to have some tough games, and this is definitely a division game. This could be a tough game. So hopefully, for Eric Decker's sake, in terms of fantasy, New England does go out there and blow him out, because I think he'll be targeted a good bit in this game then, and probably score his 5th touchdown in 5 games.
Throw it everywhere.
All right, let's move on to some sleepers here. Who are you going with?
I'm going to go with Malcolm Floyd from San Diego. They're going up against Oakland. Oakland's pass defense isn't that great. I've been listening to a lot of Pink Floyd this week, so I'm going to do Dole Floyds for these categories. If there was another Floyd in the next category, I might even go that way. I might even just make up a Floyd and put him in there myself. It doesn't really matter. But Oakland's defense doesn't scare me. Phillip Rivers is on pace to break the yardage record for the NFL. He's on pace to throw for 5,600 yards or something. Some of these teams he's going up against have some bad pass defenses. They didn't run the ball real well against Pittsburgh. I didn't watch what they did on the ground last week.
They haven't run the ball very well.
I know
all
Gordon
season.
isn't running well. He's fumbling the ball. They're losing some confidence in him. So they're going to stick to passing the ball. It's going to be all Woodhead and Floyd.
Yeah, they got
Floyd
questions
head.
in their run game, and they have one of the best passing attacks in football. I said this since the preseason, and it's happened. But Keenan Allen may sit out or may be limited by a hip injury. Stevie Johnson, he's been out with a hamstring injury.
Ow, my hamstring.
He may come back. We're not sure about that yet. But Floyd, I mean, you look, last week, Keenan Allen went down in that game. Floyd ended up with 12 targets, 5 catches for 95 yards. So he's not a consistent guy at all. He's a guy that can put up points or he's going to screw you in the end. Look, he has 3 double-digit fantasy performances in PPR this season through these 6 weeks. But all those came on the road. I do think he's going to turn it around this week and have his best game of the season at home, though.
Beast.
With all those injuries, though, especially if Keenan Allen would happen to sit, Malcolm Floyd might be the go-to guy in the receiving game. Antonio Gates is a beast, too.
Malcolm Floyd is another brick in the wall.
I'm going to go with the gentleman, the scholar,
Yeah.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Woo.
As simple as
Smart guy.
As simple as it was. I mean, it's almost like you put this whole segment together to funnel into one simple conclusion from me. Quarterbacks getting it done. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, he'll get it done.
You got to get in those 2 quarterback leagues, man.
Well, no, you don't have to have. You have to have someone other than Roethlisberger or Manning.
I
Right
proposed
now.
2 QBs, and nobody liked that idea.
It simply, when I look at his stats last week, 3 touchdowns. That's all I see. Okay, I can play him. New England, points are going to be scored. He's a go for me. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to see if he's there, and I'm picking him up.
Over Tannehill, you're saying? So,
Well, no,
He wants 4 QBs.
If you want to consider, you're asking me who's a potential sleeper.
well, right, but
Fitzpatrick is a sleeper.
in our league, Tannehill is out there, and so is Fitzpatrick.
Right.
So you have a choice.
I'm gonna go sleep. I'm gonna stay.
You're gonna go with the sleeper.
I'm gonna go with the deep sleep. Well, it all
Coma
depends
pick.
what times they play too. Like, who knows if Tannehill's a night game or what? No, if they're both at 1. Sometimes that factors in too.
Easy doesn't like waiting.
I like to but I like
who
to
plays
slide
Thursday?
I like
go
to
pick up
slide a
Kaepernick.
guy in.
Is that who plays? Does San Francisco play Seattle Thursday?
Oh, I didn't know San Francisco was still allowed to play. They were so bad.
You didn't answer my question. I'm seriously not sure if that's the game. Nothing. I'm going to go Darren McFadden with my sleeper. Look, I talked about him before. No, look.
Yeah, you just said he was garbage. Or no, you said Lance Dunbar was better than him.
Oh, Lance Dunbar was better than him. But
No.
did you see what Lance Dunbar was doing when he was in there? He was getting targeted a ton no matter who was in there
He
at
was getting
quarterback.
it done, son.
Now, he's done for the season. McFadden's
done.
taken over his role.
Dunbar.
McFadden is not as good as Lance Dunbar. Look, he had 9 catches last week for just 52 yards, but he was targeted a ton still. And the New York Giants, they let up the 10th most fantasy points to running backs this season. I think Darren McFadden's going to be targeted a ton again in this game, even though it's Matt Castle at quarterback now. But still, he's going to have Darren McFadden as his check down on pretty much all passing plays.
So over or under 13 points he scores.
I'm going over on that, man.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
He's a solid play then.
I think he's going to hurt his toe.
I like him. Yeah, I said pick him up,
Feet.
and I'm calling him my sleeper this week. And definitely, man, Lance Dunbar was putting up big numbers in
Maybe
terms of
McFadden
fantasy.
can do the same thing if he's playing in Dunbar's position now. How do you know that won't happen?
Because McFadden is just, I mean, when you watch him play, he doesn't have, he had that.
Well, playing
loose
against
frame.
the Giants, it doesn't even matter. The
I
Giants
understand.
are horrid.
Yeah, I get it. But he just doesn't have the
He'll look
moves
like
that he
OJ
used to
against the
have.
Giants.
The juice.
But yeah, I still expect him to play pretty well, in terms of fantasy at least. All right, deep sleepers. Let's finish this up here.
Comatose.
I'm going to go with my boy Chris Hogan, brother, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Hogan's going to hulk out, dude. He's going to do mad steroids before the game. You're
I've
going to
never
see
heard of
him
him.
flying around.
You
He's
remember
a
Chris
white
Hogan?
dude.
Yeah, Chris Hogan. He didn't do much last week with Watkins returning from injury, but when
Watkins is beat.
yeah, when Watkins was hurt, he was playing pretty well.
Oh, my ankle.
Look, he goes into Jacksonville this week, and in 2 road games this season, Hogan has 94 yards receiving with a touchdown in each of those games. Now, Watkins probably not going to play this week again, so Hogan, he's going to have more targets
Is
going too.
EJ at quarterback this week? Do you know?
I think it's going to be Tyrod Taylor this week, and that's where Hogan had his points.
Brother.
How about you?
I'm so deep in sleeping myself that it's hard for me to pick a guy, and I don't even know who this guy is either. Jermaine Kearse. But when I pull fantasy football up on my phone, he pops up. So
He's an
heard of
undrafted free agent
I don't know.
receiver
Well,
for the Seahawks.
thank you. No, I actually think that Seattle is gonna
Roll.
let people know that they're. I mean, okay, you can't win every football game now. I don't care who you are, but they still got the same people there, and this is where they're. And on Thursday night, this is where they're gonna show that they're still one of the best teams in the NFC, and they're just gonna roll. I'll say Kearse gets at least double digits, but I'm not gonna go any further than that.
Well, look, he's had double digits in PPR 4 times this season, but he was shut out in his other 2 games. Those 2 games were versus Carolina and versus Green Bay. Very good defenses. So this is somewhat of a risky play. But, like I said, he was shut out last week. The last time he was shut out, the next game, he put up 6 catches for 76 yards. So there's your double digits right there. And he does have at least 76 yards receiving 3 times this season. So it's not like he's just someone that's going to come out of nowhere or anything. Look, San Francisco's defense is pretty terrible, and they're bad against the pass. Jermaine Kearse has had his big games, and this is lining up to be one of them.
Well, you got to come out of nowhere to be a deep sleeper, though, right?
In terms of fantasy, this guy is a guy that's been around for a couple years now.
Oh, he gets the job done on the field, but not fantasy-wise.
Yeah.
Dude.
Would be like a Hines Ward almost.
I'm going to go with a receiver, too, here. for Kansas City going up against Pittsburgh. Albert Wilson.
What?
Pittsburgh's allowed the 11th most fantasy points to wide receivers this
Hell
season.
no.
Last week at Minnesota, he came up with 3 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown, while Jeremy Maclin was knocked out of the game with a concussion.
Ow, my head.
I'm not sure if Macklin's going to return or not. I'd have to say no at this point just because it was a concussion. And if he doesn't return, I'd make sure that Maclin sits before I play Wilson. But if Maclin does sit, Wilson should be the number 2 option for Alex Smith out there behind Travis Kelce, obviously, because Pittsburgh gets burnt against tight ends, and Kelce is one of the top tight ends in the league, so you're definitely playing that guy. But as a deep sleeper here, I think Albert Wilson could come up with a good game.
So be there at 12:50 Eastern time with your phone, iPad, whatever you got, patiently waiting to see if, what's his name, Maclin is going to play.
Dude, better
That's
players
what I
in
have
my
to do.
fantasy
Well, look,
lineup's going
Like
to be beat.
we don't even know if he's going or not.
Oh, I'm going to sit here and say he's not going to go. Listen, even if he does go, Albert Wilson should still be involved because let's face it, Jamal Charles is out. They have
West.
Charkandrick West.
No more Duckster.
Yeah, Duxter's been gone. They have now Davis out there. Listen, their run game is not going to do much against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh shut down the run pretty much all season outside of that Baltimore game. And if Ben plays in this game, that would even be better for Wilson. And let me tell you why. Because if Ben plays, they're going to blow Kansas City out, in my opinion, because Kansas City's defense is not good against the pass. And I think Ben would torch that pass defense out there. And that would just mean KC would have to pass the ball even more. And that means more targets to go around for the receivers out there in Kansas City.
Is that all we got, Dash, for our fantasy slate?
Please believe. Is there anyone else you can think of? Who should you add that I forgot?
Pittsburgh defense.
Pittsburgh defense. You know what? I did want to mention them, and I did actually forget. Pittsburgh defense been playing good over the past 4 weeks now, and
Picks.
they're actually putting up fantasy numbers as
Yeah.
well. So if you need a defense, in fact, for this week, definitely, because it does get tougher for them down the road. But against Kansas City, I think they're going to have trouble against that defense.
This should be a no-brainer, too. If you have Martavis Bryant in your lineup, he needs to stay there.
Please believe.
Do not take this guy out.
Yeah, I don't care who's the quarterback.
Yeah, just leave him in. Let him play quarterback. He'll throw it to himself.
Sky high.
Antonio
Sky
Brown,
high.
you're done. 5 for 50 is no more.
Wake up and catch the football. Sky high. Sky high.
That's all we got, fans. You can follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Follow me on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Big ups to our last subscriber getting us off of 187. Move to 188. Well, let's move it to 189 and 190. 2 more.
2 more.